Hello, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here on Thursday, July 17th, 2014 at 10:10 in the morning, Eastern Daylight Time. Now, admittedly, we're kind of off to an early start today. I awakened this morning to find a text on my, little Nokia phone. I'm not going to show you the whole thing because, I don't want to show you the guy's name, but it's, you saw this phone yesterday in my video. It will be featuring large in my life here over the next 3 weeks until the phone company decides to get its act together and come up here and fix my phone. Nonetheless, I awakened to find a bit of advice from, and I'm sure it was very well intentioned. I'm sounding sarcastic, aren't I? Even though I'm not being sarcastic. That's a dilemma, isn't it? Sound sarcastic when you're not sarcastic? How does somebody figure that out? How does that get ferreted out in the mix of communication? And indeed in various modes of communication. Well, so I awakened to find this text. Here we go. I'll hold up for a moment. Another tip. This is after he said that he was no longer going to communicate with me in any way, shape, or form. So I guess that resolve broke down. Another tip. I love that. I like tips. Sometimes they're pretty good advice. Sarcasm often doesn't come through when communicating via text or email. Sarcasm often doesn't come through when communicating via text or email. That's an interesting statement. Now, this is from a 20-year-old guy, and that's not putting this guy down. He's a very smart guy, and I really like him. Well, we may get back to that. So I thought about this for a while, and excuse me. This raises all sorts of linguistic and rhetorical points for discussion, and pondering, and commenting. First of all, it might explain all these emoticons, those little smiley faces or the tongues, I'm sure you all know what that is. All these various odd symbols. And LOLs, come on. If you have to explain that you're making a joke, if you have to actually explain you're making a joke, either the person to whom you are communicating that has a very feeble mind or suspicious mind or an unstable mind, or you yourself fall into one of those three categories. Sorry guys, doesn't matter what age you are, that's just the fact of the matter. Period. And various odd uses of colons and other typographical symbols, almost all of which I find bewildering and pointless and the sign of a feeble mind. Okay, well, clearly I'm reading you an email I sent to a number of people after I received this bit of advice. I'm reading you some of the email and remarking on it. Now here we get down to really sort of the more meaty issue. Is it a result of the never say anything descriptive, just factual statements about, descriptive about anything, unless it is loaded with fulsome praise? Is it a result of the bump culture we now seem to be in? Well, bump is probably an older slang word that basically means it's equivalent of bullshit. Oh. Is it a result of never say anything descriptive about anything unless it is loaded with fulsome praise and bump culture we now seem to be in? Well, that age group seems to be in. Now that may be an unfair generalization. That may be an unfair generalization. You know, I mean, like I have sort of a sample size of 1 or 2 on this, so I can't, you know, n number equals 1 or n equals 2. Well, actually, that would be what passes for a study nowadays. Is, you know, whenever it gets reported in a newspaper, a study. They did a study. You know, 8 people were looked at. Come on, you can't get statistical validity from 8 people. Sure, I can't get them from 1 or 2. Although, actually, I was involved in a phase 3 drug trial for dantrolene, and they decided that the number of people, well, it was for malignant hyperthermia, treating malignant hyperthermia. That's a complication of anesthesia. It's a very rare complication of anesthesia. It's genetically linked. But they decided, the statistical doctors decided that you basically only needed about 30 to 35 people to achieve statistical significance. That resulted in a free trip to Boston to go up there and participate in the presentation of cases. That was when I was a resident. Woo! Well, that was a drunk weekend. And many fine meals of prime rib, too, on some of the tallest buildings in Boston. And in some of the smaller intimate venues in Boston, too. The study coordinatrix, put the moves on me. Boy, was she barking up the wrong tree. Her coon dog should have called her off on that one. Still, she's footing the bill for a $120 meal. It's fine by me. I'm such a whore. I'm a cheap date. Well, I guess not at $120 for a meal. So to get back to the point, has the descriptive now become the normative? Now notice that. See, that's in philosophy. You have descriptive statements. You know, You know, Jack walked down the road, and you have normative statements. You know, Jack should not have walked down the road. So, or it was good for Jack to walk down the road. I mean, those are normative statements. You know, Jack walked down the road is a descriptive statement. Has the descriptive now become the normative? Is everything now Oprah-fied? Or even worse, The View. Well, see, this goes into my whole theory about the feminization of, the relentless feminization of American culture. I mean, guys are no longer allowed to be guys. No, you have to be sensitive. You have to be almost hyper aware all the time, caring. Well, I mean, decent people care. Decent guys care. I mean, every decent man I know cares. He may not, go around saying it all the time, but he cares. He's thinking it. He may hide behind a layer of sarcasm and irony, but he cares. The View. Well, then I go on to remark, they need to flood that studio with all the carbon dioxide they were trying to suck out of power plant chimneys. Heck, both studios. Well, here's an idea, and then let's not suck that stuff out of the power plant chimneys, and shave about $20 or $30 or $40 off my power bill each month. You got to pay your taxes and you got to pay the electric bill, and pretty much everything else, falls into anything extra, except for food, obviously. And boy, that power company's that's always been a bit of an eye-opener to me because, I mean, and when I grew up, a big electric bill in our household was like $20. Now, admittedly, that would be about $100 today. But I wander afield, as often happens here on the Joe Kersey channel. Now, I go on to address the questions I just raised. Now, I admit I might be a bit of an outlier here, as in so many other areas. Oh, as in so many other things. I just repeated myself. But sarcasm and irony was mother's milk to me. Every night, my mother, my dad, my sister, myself. Now, there was an 8-year difference between my sister and myself. And there's a 42-year-old difference between myself and my parents. 42-year-old difference there, if somebody's listening. Oh, perhaps the guy that sent me this advice. See, I try to get along with everybody. I do. I might not sound like I do, but I do. It makes it, things go a lot better if you try to get along with people. Every night, all 4 of us sat at the dinner table, and both parents would go on about the various foolishnesses they had to put up with that day in their jobs, and the idiotic foibles of many people we knew. Well, both my parents taught school. My dad taught vocational agriculture for 30 years, and then after sort of the shop burned down, and there weren't enough guys signing up for vocational agriculture, they moved him to general science, which, basically meant teaching the 9th grade folks a little science before they ended up going over to the jail. And that's what it amounted to. And so he spent the last 10 years of his career doing that, and battling an absolutely moronic administration. Not so much the principal of the school in which he worked, but the superintendent of the larger system. He was a nitwit. I mean, the guy's a nitwit. And I'm surprised this guy could even walk and breathe at the same time. His kid was the same way, by the way. Well, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, does it? So, lots of stories about work and things happening at work, and what you have to put up, and how you have to compromise and deal with getting through the day. You know, I mean, it's all laced with sarcasm and irony. Ah, it's great. Great stories. I love stories. You know that. So, all true, much laughter all around. So, for me, that form of discourse, whether it's in the video, audible, visual arena, or whether it's in an extended email, or, well, I rarely text because it's not convenient to do so on my phone. Excuse me. Excuse me again. This kind of tone and approach to communicating is second nature to me. No, it's first nature to me. It's what it is. And as my sister and I got older, and had experiences out in the real world being basically in school, where we essentially were completely in total observation all the time. I mean, if both your parents are school teachers and you're spending your time in school, I mean, there ain't going to be a moment that you're not observed and reported back upon. That can get kind of oppressive. It also leads one to develop certain skills related to being sly and dissembling. That's called survival, guys. That's just called survival. As my sister and I got older and had some experiences, we would chime in as well. And here we get to sort of the nub. Finally, you say, and the stories better be well told, or they would get short shrift. Fools were not suffered gladly in my house. No. And they really still aren't. Although I don't necessarily view this guy's advice as being advice from a fool. First of all, the guy's not a fool. I mean, if this is indeed the new sort of ethos out here as far as communicating, it's probably useful to be aware of that, however repugnant it is to me. Well, I don't really have anything more to add on that one other than to say that I'm going to miss this guy. Well, I told you about that yesterday. So there it is, YouTubers. Bye-bye now.